We're live.
Recording
Oh
in
yeah,
progress. Like I would say.
I just got a notice it's being recorded, so
Yeah,
I'll press OK.
thank you very much. Okay, so we're doing another episode of Too Old to Punk. Punk as in a verb, a doing. Um, and who are we talking to today, Gaz? Could you kindly introduce our lovely guest and friend?
Old friend, legend, Jos, how do you say your surname, my friend? Houtveen.
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 Oh,
It's a lot harder than Smith.
Yeah.
so with Joss and Garrett Smith from
Yeah,
Orby, close to Stockholm or something like that.
yeah.
Um, well, so Joss, so as we've just said, the whole idea today is just to have a little bit of chat about your journey
Journey.
through punk and
Yeah.
hardcore, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call
Yeah.
it, and up to today and how things have changed for you during the years and whatnot.
Hmm.
So if
And
you
what keeps you
mind,
doing it?
start off a
Yeah.
little bit with your background and how you got into things.
Yeah. Well, how detailed do you want the background? But
Oh, just go with your flow, and if it's digressing too much, we can try
yeah,
and
sure, no problem. I'm
Then Carl's daughter will edit out. Carl's daughter's our editor because
all
we're
right.
too old to know how
Okay.
that works.
Well, I'm the youngest of a family of 8, so that's a good way to start. And I grew up in a small village called Achterveld, which is at that time had about 1,000 inhabitants. I grew up on a farm, though my parents were not farmers, but they bought themselves an old farm. And like I said, the youngest of 8, my older sister is 17 years older than I am, so I'm the Benjamin. And growing up on a farm was nice, so I was used to being outdoors all the time. And Amersfoort was the closest city nearby. Well, fast forward to, I think, 8th grade or maybe the first grade of middle school, which is 1977. And through one of my brothers, who had a job and he could afford to buy records, I got to know some punk bands, and also because of the TV and radio and things like that. And I was always attracted to the louder form of music, such as Status Quo, AC/DC, Kiss. Although looking back on Kiss, it was quite mellow, but then again, at that time it was loud. So, like, I got to know the Sex Pistols through Dutch television and newspapers and things like that, and like the music attracted me, and also like the whole thing of being different, dressing different, and things like that. So, in 1977, when I was 13, I got into punk. And that's also the year I went to middle school. So I had to go to Amersfoort on my bicycle, and I got to know more people from the area. And I think a friend of mine from the same village, he was into punk rock as well. And the two of us had like a job to earn some how do you call it, pocket money. And all my pocket money went into buying records, and later on buying pins and t-shirts. And we had a boy chapter in Amsterdam, so I got my first bondage pants there after saving up money for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, I think. And then fast forward in 1979, my friend Alex, who lived in the same town as I did, and myself were in Amersfoort, and we discovered this wall that was filled with graffiti of punk bands, and also it's like this group of punks that they called themselves Punks 79, and then went on into Punks 80, and they had all these bands, and it was such a wall of information for us. So we would write down all the band names and go to the local record store and ask them, "Oh, do you have this record by this band called UK Subs, for example?" And they said, "Yeah, we have them." So we got to know them, and we thought there was a huge punk gang in Amersfoort because we saw the graffiti everywhere. And then at one point, I went to visit one of my sisters who lived in Amersfoort in another part, and she was not home. So I decided, okay, I will go back later, and got myself a famous bag of chips with peanut butter sauce, Gareth, which you like so much.
For your information, just changed my life, introduced me to pommes frites,
Yeah.
chips with peanut butter sauce.
Yeah, which
Amazing.
is the best ever. And so I went into this snack bar, and there was this punk rocker standing on the counter, and he turned around and he asked me, "So, how is life for punks in Achterveld?" And I was blown away, like, "What? How do you know that I'm from Achterveld?" That turned out to be Paul, who I still play in a band with.
Amazing.
And so I got to chat to him for a long time, and then we sort of agreed to meet somewhere a couple of days later. And then we found out that the punks 80 at that time were just Paul and Olaf. Just the two of them. And we thought it was this massive gang of punks in Amersfoort. So that's basically how I got into punk rock. Because of my older brother, and TV, radio, newspapers, you name it, like all the big things like Sex Pistols, The Clash, The Damned, they were there. My brother sort of dropped out. Well, he never was a punk, but he had the punk records, and he dropped out of that after a couple of months. So he gave me Stranglers' first LP, Iggy Pop, Iggy and the Stooges, Sex Pistols, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So basically I blame him.
How old were you then, Jos, when you met the other two of the crew?
I think I was 15 going on 16.
Yeah. And what was your style like then? I was just thinking about your bondage pants.
Yeah. Well, it was like a mixture. Like I used to wear one of those, how do you call them? We say Colbert in Dutch, but it's like the top part of a suit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like filled with safety pins and everything I could find. And I was sewing on zippers and that kind of stuff. And then at that point, you could only get like the really big batches in Amersfoort. And it would be full of batches that I either bought or at some point you could make them yourself. They had like this shop that had a machine, and you could bring in an image and they would make a button for you or a badge. And after that, I think my mom bought me a leather jacket.
Amazing.
And it was like a second-hand leather jacket, like one of those, the typical punk leather jackets. And at first I would just make one small band name on the back, just like really tiny. And of course that evolved in having a big logo on your backside and studs and things like that. I would wear creepers. The shoes with the thick soles. They would be like the punk shoes before we got to know Doc Martens. And I remember there was after a couple of years, I went to Amsterdam together with Paul and Olaf, and I had to buy new shoes. And I bought these creepers, which were all above your ankle, and they were like shiny red, and they had these thick soles. But I had size 13, so you could imagine I was walking there with like shoes that looked like boats. And I thought it was really cool until I saw a photograph of myself with skinny black jeans, and I was like, "Oh shit, that looks ridiculous." But we all, we all mature and learn. So that was basically the style. And I think one of the first times I went to Paul and Olaf's house, because they're brothers, as you know, and they lived with their parents, and they had like an attic.
So they were living in Amersfoort?
Yeah, they were living in Amersfoort. The thing is that their father worked for the railway company, so they had free traveling all over Holland, so they could go anywhere. And at that time, you also had something which was called a teenage tour, which you could do in the summertime. And you would get a card that would last for 2 weeks, and you could travel for 2 weeks for free. So the three of us went all over the Netherlands. But back to the meeting them for the first time, of course, I wanted to check their records. And they had this record by this band called Discharge.
Wow.
Which, like the first one, Realities of War.
Wow.
And I asked them, okay, what's this band like? And they were like, well, not that good, we don't know. I said, oh, can you play it, please? So they played it, and I was like, bloody hell, this is great. It's like going for the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
Like next step for us or for me was UK subs because they were faster than the Sex Pistols and shorter songs. And like their Crash Course LP is still one of my favorite records because it has so many songs. And I remember going to one of the gigs in the same period, and it was like if I play that record, I close my eyes, I'm back at that gig. So after UK subs, what was next? Well, Exploited maybe, because they were around the same time. But then Discharge for me was like the next level. And I really liked that EP. And then a couple of weeks later, I told you about the Teenage Tour. We went to Rotterdam and we were inside a record store. And that was just the day that the Fight Back 7-inch was released. So I saw that and I said, oh, can I listen to this? And at that time you had like the headphones in the record store. And I was listening to it and I was shouting really loud, oh, bloody hell, this is fast. This is so fast. It's unbelievable. And everybody in the record store turned around looking at me and falling over like, take off the headphones. So that like the Discharge thing was the next level. And
but you guys got like a lot of UK stuff coming
Sorry?
through? Was there a lot of UK stuff you were listening to then? Not so much American?
I think like I knew about the Dead Kennedys at some point because I found that's the California Uber Alles 7-inch in Amsterdam at a record store. And that was really good. I really enjoyed that. But there was like also because if you go to Amsterdam, there would be loads of punks on the streets, so you would always check other punks' jackets, to see what band names are on there that you didn't know yet. So Dead Kennedys is one of them. And I think I got to know more bands because the decline of Western Civilization live LP.
Yeah.
So I think that's how we got to know Black Flag and the Germs and Fear.
Yeah.
And then I found the Germs LP for really cheap at a secondhand store in Utrecht, and it was that compilation, and then also Let Them Be Jelly Beans, which has the best version of the Black Flag song "Police Story," I think. Oh yeah, and that evolved into more like the American stuff.
Yeah.
And at that time, the Dead Kennedys, they toured Europe. I didn't get to see them in Amsterdam because it was sold out. It was also on a weekday, and I think I wasn't able to go there. But I heard stories about that gig and also about the support act, which was called Millions of Dead Cops. And they did a short tour afterwards, and I saw them at a venue in Arnhem, which is also not that far. Well, Netherlands is a small country, so it's not that far anyway. And we went there and they played with Jesus and the Gospel Fuckers, which is a very notorious Dutch band, like a brilliant band. I think it's one of the best bands that from that era from the Netherlands, but that it was a really violent gig. And I remember that Dave Dictor did like a tour report in Max from Rock and Roll. And he was writing about that specific gig that they would go up there in a van together with 20 people or something like that. And some of them were carrying guns and they would have drugs and that kind of stuff. And they were stopped, but they were pulled over on the motorway by the police, and they were shitting themselves. But the police were so afraid of all these guys with Jesus and the Gospel Fuckers that they said, "Yeah, please drive on." Wow. So, and at that gig, it was like they would pick people in the crowd, and the guitar player would look to the singer and say, "Okay, are you going to kick his ass or am I going to do it?" And then the guitar player, "I will do it." He would put away his guitar, jump into the crowd, beat somebody up, and then get back on stage and play on. It's that really, looking back on it, it's like really violent gigs at that time. And also the Exploited when they played the same venue. I don't know. I think that's the most violence I've ever seen at a live gig. And I remember that we went up there to see Angelic Upstarts and Cockney Rejects. But luckily for us, that gig got cancelled. Because I think if we would have gone there, it would have been a slaughterhouse. Because as in the UK, there was the rise of skinheads and like the whole Oi movement and the Nazi skinheads and that kind of stuff. But I'm jumping from era to era actually. But well, together with
you made the move to Amersfoort, did you move there from the
No,
village?
no, no, no.
Oh,
I still lived in Achterveld because it
okay.
was like how old was I? 16, 17,
Yeah.
not old enough to live on my own. And at that time, we started our first band called the Sextons,
Mm.
and we would practice at first in the bedroom of my friend Alex, who was playing bass. Olaf was on drums, Paul guitar, and I was the singer. And at first, we didn't have a drum kit, so Olaf would just use a chair and two hammers.
Amazing.
And we would have one amp, and that was used by bass, guitar, and vocals. Uh, Actually, we recorded 4 songs,
Wow.
and I think 2 of them are included on the Lärm discography, double LP or CD.
Oh,
It's
amazing.
like me being, I think, 15 or 16 years old, screaming my lungs out with a very high pitched voice, but it was fun. And
Yeah.
then we did one gig with that band. And unfortunately, we recorded like 20 more songs in a proper way, but the tape got lost along the way. So
Oh, well.
that's a pity. But quite soon after that, Alex, who was the bass player, he moved to Amersfoort and he got in touch with like the wrong people who were into drugs and that kind of stuff. And the 3 of us weren't really. So we parted ways. And then we started another band and we went on practicing at the barn of my parents' farm. And actually, that's where the Lärm cow comes from, because we would do the first band practice there. And like the first notes, all the cows went on the stampede. And that's how we borrowed later on like the term hard cow punk and that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
So this is like 1980, 81, I think. And we tried various people to join the band, and eventually that evolved into a band called the Disturbers, which was me on vocals, 2 female friends on vocals, and then a bass and guitar and drums. But the bass player was trying to get me. He wanted to kick me out of the band, but he didn't manage. And Paul and Olaf and myself decided to move on with the 3 of us and the 2 female singers. And then one of the 2 left the band because she got pregnant. And then we went to see Black Flag live in Amsterdam, and we already knew Menno from the same area. And on the train we asked him, "Oh, do you want to become the vocalist of our new band called Lärm?" And he said yes. So that's how the band started, and that's when things got a bit more serious band-wise. Like before that, I think we were very much influenced by the whole punk scene in Utrecht, which was more around. It involved squatting and doing their own records, tapes, etc., the fanzines. So we decided to start our own tape label called Er is Hope, and that means there is hope. And it's like based on some sort of evangelic movement, which had a rainbow and like there is hope, blah, blah, blah. So we decided to name our tape label that way. And the first tape we released was a tape with 3 bands from Amersfoort, including our own band called Total Chaoz with a Z at the end. Another band called The Puke, and a band called Asperities. And then after that, I think we did a tape by another local band. I'm not sure. If you look on Discogs, you can see the whole order of the discography. But I think the first tape that really was a success was the Finland hardcore tape, which was by Terveet Cadet, Bastards, and I just learned how to pronounce it in a good way a couple of weeks ago. Riestetut. And those was like a really big success. Then we did a Destructors tape as well, the UK Destructors. We were in touch with them and we asked them, can we do a tape? And they said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And after that, I think we did Funeral Oration, and then we did the first volume of Holland Hardcore, which was also the first thing that Lärm ever released. We did 3 volumes of that. In the meantime, I think after the 3rd volume, shortly after that, we recorded our first LP.
Were you playing a lot around this time?
Well, I'd say at least once a month.
Yeah.
Like it varied. Like we would have a gig every weekend, and then a month or two nothing. So it all depended on what was happening, if there were new squads, if there were new festivals, that kind of stuff. And also, we were known for being out of tune because we didn't know how to tune guitars. But Paul didn't play a chord; he just had one finger. Or try to do a chord and it sounds totally out of tune. And we never did that deliberately, but just because we thought, fuck it, punk rock, and we would use distortions and hope it would sound good. And I remember when we went from practicing at my parents' place to a proper practice space in Amersfoort, where they would have the Yamaha amps and that kind of stuff. And I remember them from Crash when they played. And I was like, oh, and that guitar sounds great, and that bass sounds great. And I would plug in my bass, and it sounded like shit. And all of us, we would start play together, and was like, oh, it doesn't sound like Crash at all, or like you name any band. So, I still am really proud of how we started out and did not give a shit, because we were thinking, okay, I think we were a perfect example of punks going to gigs and thinking we can do this as well. Yeah. And so like because of the whole Utrecht scene and also in Rotterdam where you would have the Red Rock Collective, we were so influenced by them that we started our own band and started our own tape label. Eventually, our own fanzine, our own record label. Paul and Olaf would start a video fanzine back in the 80s. So I think those, especially Utrecht and Rotterdam, have been a very big influence on us. Not so much, Amsterdam. No. Because Amsterdam, they had like an attitude, like being the biggest city of the Netherlands and like the capital of the Netherlands, and it would be very snobbish. So, for example, Paul, Olaf, and myself would go there during a holiday, like I said, to buy records or T-shirts or whatever, and we would encounter punks from Amsterdam, and they would go like, "Oh, are you genuine ones? Are you the real ones?" And we would like, "Yeah, fuck it, we're punks from Amersfoort, and we might not be as tough as you are, but we're still punks." Yeah. So for some reason, Amsterdam has not been our biggest influence, although you had like more record shops there and more squads and that kind of stuff. But the whole attitude of a lot of people from Amsterdam sucked, and we were very much attracted to the other cities in the Netherlands who had also thriving punk scenes, and maybe often better because they had to really fight for their existence and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
So were you guys like the youngsters in the scene then, Jos? Were you like the younger than all the other bands that were establishing, found your way into that through them?
Yeah, of course. There's like, I think if you look at I don't consider us the first wave of punk bands. I think we're part of the second wave. I think the first wave was in between 1976 and 1979, maybe. And I think we started out in 1980. So yeah, that's like the second wave. And the first wave was a lot about art students and that kind of stuff, and people heavily being into drugs. And us from a smaller city, we're not like that. Like neither of us are art students. I think we all come from a working class background, and that makes a difference from the first wave of punks who were, well, a lot of them were like art students and doing it for that purpose, which is okay in itself, of course. And yeah, like I said, the second wave was more DIY.
Yeah.
First wave is like all the records were released on semi-major labels. For a few exceptions, like we would have a punk label called I think No Fun, if I'm correct. But they are like a subdivision of a bigger record company.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, Utrecht, Rotterdam were the first cities that would have their own DIY record label or the zine or you name it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're second wave. So that means like there was a generation older than us.
Yeah.
For example, like the first bands, they had band members that were already in the late 30s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when did
So
you?
it must be something like all the youngsters coming to our gigs right now and think, "Oh, that's my granddad on stage."
Exactly. Yeah, that's at the end of this interview. That's what we'll end up.
I was going to ask Josh. So when did things? Because obviously, Lärm did a lot of shows, and I know you started to play with UK bands and all that kind of stuff. When did things really sort of start to take off in that sort of respect?
I think maybe during the period that we recorded our second LP, like the Straight on View LP, we got like discovered by this American label. And at that time, you would see the change of punk becoming more hardcore. And like American bands would have more influence on the whole scene. But I think we as a band always sticked to our roots that was in punk rock. But I see the development of Lärm, or Lärm as you call it, is maybe some sort of natural development that went along with the way that we developed as punks. From like being like the UK 82 punk with studs and Mohicans and spiky hair and that kind of stuff, to the more normal look. That's not the right word, like maybe US hardcore look.
Yeah, kind of like skate punky sort of look, maybe
yeah.
Like Stupids in the UK and all those people starting to dress.
Exactly. Yeah. So and also because when we saw Millions of Dead Cops, they were like such a great band, really fast, very political, and they didn't give a shit how they looked like.
Yeah.
They would have shaved heads and like army trousers and that kind of stuff. We were like, okay, so you don't need to have a Mohican to be punk rock.
Yeah, like a uniform.
Yeah. So exactly, like a uniform.
Yeah.
So when we recorded that Straight in View LP, I think that was when it all started to evolve. We would be asked to, open for the bigger bands such as Scream and Government Issue. I don't know, a bunch of bands. And that was also when the Emma Squad in Amsterdam was happening. And the Emma Squad is a squad that was really important, I think, for the whole European, even international punk scene. And that also influenced us to squat a church in the city center of Amersfoort.
Okay.
And there was like a huge church, and we would have the how do you call the house of the vicar?
Vicarage.
We would get that as our punk cafe, and we would have put on gigs every weekend. And at one point, every band that was touring the Netherlands would play Amersfoort. So we would get all the bigger bands like Chaos, Government Issue, you name them. Any band that played Holland, they played Amersfoort. And it was really good because we were known that our gigs would always start at 7 and they would be over by 10. So everybody would be able to get a train back home. And I think, that's what, like I said, then it's when things evolved for us. And we went on tour to Spain. And it was supposed to be a Spanish-Italian tour, but disaster stroke, and our van broke down 3 times, and we had to leave our van in Spain and to cancel the Italian leg of the tour. But that was like for us, it was a big thing because we went all the way to Spain by ourselves. And at that time, you did not have internet, you did not have cell phones, so you would have to write letters to people and ask them if they would organize gigs for you. And then all based on trust, you would drive like 2 days to Euskadi, to Donostia, and to play your first gig there. And that was like a really great experience.
That's amazing. Like that,
Yeah,
based on trust completely. You know what I mean? Like now the
exactly.
information is so quick back and forth
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
it's like you
instant
would.
communication. The
Yeah, we
thought of
would,
doing that.
have maps, and we only would have a phone number, and like especially in the Basque country, people did not speak English that much. So I was the chosen band member because I had studied French, and they would speak some French, but my French was a bit rusty.
Mm.
Never mind, but we had a great time there, and we played with really good bands, and also you know to get to know the whole DIY structure of Europe was very nice. And then, yeah, from there on, I think we toured the UK together with Heresy at one point, and this Belgian band called Heibel.
Amazing.
Hmm.
How was that with
Uh,
Heresy over there then?
what's that?
How was it with Heresy?
Yeah, well, it was good. We became good friends because when they toured the mainland the first time, and I think the first time was when John March was filling in as a singer for Heresy,
Mm.
and they would still play the old songs with Reevesy on guitar. And John, it was the Concrete Socks Heresy tour, and then we got to know him and them, and we started to talk to them, and then they also became friends with a friend of mine called Edwin from Amsterdam, and he's a close friend. He was a close friend of them, and then they came over and they played Amersfoort.
Mm.
And then, yeah, we sort of agreed on doing a tour in summertime through England and Scotland. And that was nice. It was like three bands, and we would travel from Nottingham to London and back, that kind of stuff. And then we decided to do a tour together through Germany and Austria. And that was at the time when we recorded our second 7-inch. And it's also right before they split up. I think that there was like a bad mood in the band as well, a bad vibe. And so they decided to quit. But that's like also towards the end of Lärm. And I think in between the tour in the Basque Country and the German tour was our biggest peak. And like we would play venues in Belgium that would hold 1,500 people, and we're sold out. So
Wow.
yeah, and that's not. I don't think it's because of Lärm, but it's also because of the package that would be
Yeah.
like a couple of bands that would attract a lot of people. And at that time, I think hardcore was huge in
Yeah.
Europe. Well, at least in the Netherlands and Belgium and Germany. So, any gig would attract at least 100 people.
So what
Uh,
kind of what year was this? Like 86 or 85? What year was that?
86, 87, 88,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Although 88, I recall Youth Today playing in Amsterdam, and Lärm didn't exist anymore.
Okay.
Because I know that Paul and Olaf, they played with this straight edge band called Profound as
Mm.
a support act.
Yeah.
And I think that was when Lärm was changing into Seeing Red, more or less.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you say a
Uh,
little bit about that transition then, Joss? How that sort of that process?
from Lärm to Seeing Red, you mean?
Yeah. So what kind of happened and
I think it basically happened because Menno, the singer of Lärm, he was studying to become a lawyer,
right,
and he needed a lot of time
sure.
to finish his exams and to
Mm.
graduate. So at one point he said, I'm not enjoying it that much anymore, and we also like Lärm at that time was really popular, and we would get offers from bigger record labels to release an LP.
Mm.
We would try to slow down some songs, and if we played them live, the crowd would like boo, play faster, blah blah blah, and we would only. I also remember when we played London, we played with Napalm Death, and Mick Harris was disappointed. He said, "You became too melodic." And then I said, "Well, I dislike side A of the Napalm Death record, or B. I can't remember A or B because it's too metal." And that pops up every now and then in interviews. Like, yeah, the guys from Lärm, they say that our B side was too metal and they didn't like it. And that was also, I think, at that point you would get the whole crossover thing.
Yeah.
that was happening, and you would see that the whole attitude was changing of people. People didn't give a shit anymore. The whole political part of the punk scene, it sort of disappeared for a lot of people, and it was all about. All of a sudden, it was like, who's the fastest band? And for us, that never was important. We were very limited in the kind of music we could play. It was never our goal to become the fastest band or whatever. We just thought, okay, this is what we enjoy and this is what we can do best. Yeah. So when that whole competition thing started, we were like, this is not so much fun anymore. And especially when people were shouting faster, that kind of stuff, or if we would introduce songs and they would say, shut up and play. We were like, okay, this is not good anymore. So I think, well, it's not really an official breakup or something like that. But Menno said, I can't do it anymore. And we said, yeah, well, fair enough. We understand. And then Paul, Olaf, and myself, we said, okay, let's try something else. And I think if you listen to the first Seein Red records, you can understand that we're trying very hard to do something else, but we have limited capacities as musicians. And although I am not ashamed of what we did, it's compared to what we do nowadays, it's something completely different. But I think it's also something that we deliberately wanted to do. We wanted to become a different band and still keep the politics into the music, but change the music. And I think bands like Ignition, Fugazi, Fuel, those bands were really big influences on us, but we never managed to reach that level for some reason. But I think the whole melodic phase was useful, especially because at one point we were playing in Ypres in Belgium on a 2 days festival, and we were playing the first day, and the day after Stack and Drop Dead would play. And we were watching them and we were like, bloody hell, this is good. And this is what we want to do as well. So after that, after seeing them, we decided, okay, maybe we should just go back to the stuff that we could do really good back then. And we started to play more faster songs and enjoy it a lot. And even like for me, it's not only about playing fast because I enjoy all kind of music, but I think that for Seein Red, that was like a big turning point. And from that moment on, we also popularity is maybe not the right word, but people would get to know us, and we would be asked to play more often, and eventually go to the States for 3 times, Japan 2 times. Brazil, but we got stuck on the Dutch airport, and all over Europe.
When you started getting faster again, you started getting more requests for that.
Yeah, and also at one point, because I remember when we first went to the US, I think that was like mid-90s or something like that. And I was 30, and people would say, "Wow, these guys are old." At that point, 30 was like being really old in the punk hardcore scene.
But I think it's still a thing now, because I remember being there with like Victims, say, and we were in our 30s and playing with like a young band like Black Breath, and they were saying the same things, but they were saying it's amazing that in Europe you can do that. You can get older and you can still carry on playing in a punk band, because in they're like, you can fuck around in like a hardcore band, DIY band when you're young in the States, but at some point you're expected that has to become a career, or you have to do something else. And a lot of kids who are playing in bands are studying, like you say, lawyers or whatever, and a career. So they're like, so maybe you get support to do that in Sweden, like from the government to subsidize practice spaces and stuff.
No. It's like, I think Sweden is totally different from the Netherlands. Over here, it's like we always had to pay for a practice space, and it was no money from the state or whatever. It was all like, I don't know. It's something I'm used to, or was used to. Like, okay, you have to finance it yourself. And of course, like practice spaces were not as expensive back then as they are now. But yeah, that's just we all had like side jobs going to school. And Paul and Olaf, when they finished middle school, they became unemployed. And Paul was like unemployed for, I think, well, at least 10 to 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was the only one in the band who was like studying. And, because I wanted to become a teacher. So I had to study for 3 more years. And Paul and Olaf, they quit middle school and they said, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
We're gonna live off the state until they reached the point that they would be cut on their dole money and they had to get a job.
Yeah.
But still, they had like what they call themselves shitty jobs. Being a garbage man is not the best job you can imagine. It's like tough work and that kind of stuff. So
I can relate to that because for a long time, I was maybe it was when we had like Polly, our daughter, I think, and I was 35, 36, and I started to realize because up until that point, I'd always had jobs where I could always like just go away, and it was always okay to go away and come back. But then I wasn't getting any kind of salary. I was just getting like, paid by the hour, and which gave you the freedom to go away, but it didn't make you very rich. But up until that point, being able to go away and play shows was always a priority. And so I was like, then I went to study, and I think I was like 38 before I got my first salary, something like a monthly wage. I was like, fuck. I know when it's got by, and then I read, But how old were you just when you started getting into teaching and stuff?
21.
Okay, so it's
2021. I graduated when I was 20, I think.
Yeah.
And I had my first job right after that. I turned 21 in the summertime and I started teaching for 2 years. And then
you were playing at this time, Jos. Seein Red was still going.
Oh, it was still Lärm, actually.
I still at 21. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that was like 1985. I turned 21, and Seein Red started, if I'm correct, in 1989.
Right. So you've been teaching through pretty much like the whole life.
Yeah.
I think I was unemployed for 2 or 3 months. Because at one point I wanted to move to England because I got to know the guys in Heresy very well, and I was like, oh, let's try to live there, but that didn't work out. So I came back to the Netherlands. I was unemployed, and then I ran into my neighbor who was also a teacher, and she told me they were looking for somebody on her school to substitute. So I went for a job interview, and they said, yeah, well, we would like to offer you the job, and I said, well, that's okay, but next month I'm going to be away for 2.5 weeks because I've got a tour in Germany coming up. That was the tour with Heresy. And they said, yeah, but that's okay, no problem. We really want you as a teacher over here. So I was overwhelmed by that, thinking, God, I must do something good that they allow me to go on a break for 2.5 weeks and come and return to the school. So that's what I did then. And then I think after the next summer, I think is when Seeing Red more or less started. I think we also were in a nameless phase because we're still thinking, okay, what band name should we get? And I think Seeing Red started in 1989 or something like that.
Yeah.
So you've been managing for all this time to maintain working and still play.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, for example, 3 weeks ago we went to Finland for a weekend, Friday, Saturday, and it took me like a week and a half to recover from that. But back then I was a lot younger, and it doesn't take you such a long time to recover from a night out or a late night or a long weekend or that kind of stuff. So yeah, I managed, and of course I had rough days. Playing a gig on a weekday night and get back home at 2, and the alarm clock is ringing at 6. That you don't have to do that often, but I still managed, and we could use my holidays for touring.
Yeah,
because as a teacher, you get more time off than I think at a different job. So we would tour the 2 weeks around Christmas. We did a couple of tours with Stack from Germany in December. Summertime, we went to America 3 times during summertime, and Japan, I think we did it in the spring break, and the other time also in the summer. So that was quite convenient for me. And for the other two guys, especially in the beginning, they were like unemployed. So for them, it was no issue. And later on, when they got jobs as well, they could get time off quite easily. So yeah, that's how we managed. Not the punk rock lifestyle that lots of people were leading, but yeah, we were doing it, and and I would get shit for being a teacher, and people would start discussions with me like being like slave to the system or a tool of the system. I was like, yeah, fuck it, I enjoy my work, and I think that I can influence a younger generation in a better way than a lot of punk rockers can by being drunk or whatever. So yeah.
And you've Seein Red have always, well, the way I've understood it, always been kind of, for me at least, overtly political.
Yeah.
It's been a band like always had a message, always had something to say, not just going there playing fast for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It's always been, I think it's throughout the whole career, if you like, of the band, right?
Yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I remember also when we first started out as a band, we would introduce the songs like we do nowadays, but back then people were not used to it. So like I said, they would say "shut up and play," and we would get discussions. I remember one gig we did in the neighborhood of The Hague, and we stopped the gig for an hour and a half to have a discussion with the audience, and it's like people were so pissed off, but we're like, yeah, fuck you. We have something to say, and we're going to say it. And if you don't agree, let's have an argument or have a discussion. Yeah. And I every now and then I run into people who were at that gig, and they start talking about it. Like that was such a weird experience. A band that would just put away their instruments and started a discussion with the audience. We're like, yeah. Why not? And we still do. Well, now we don't stop playing or like have an argument, but we still introduce the songs, and we still want to be thought provoking. And it's like often very black and white, but I'd rather be black and white than grey.
I'll tell you a little interesting story, Jos. I won't mention the person, but a friend of mine. I think it was the last time he played K-Town.
Yeah.
When was that now? 5 years, 3 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe
3 years ago, something like that. Anyway, so songs were being introduced, and telling what the songs are about or contextualizing it in kind of politics and whatnot. And my friend said to me, who I won't mention, yeah, but they're stating the obvious. I said, sometimes you have to continue stating the obvious and keep saying the same because it falls on deaf ears. And I said to my friend, we see so many bands now just get up there and say nothing, and they forget what for us at least the scene's about. And there's younger generations of people there who've probably not used to people talking out in these spaces and discussing these ideas or saying what the songs are about. And my friend actually said to me afterwards, you know what? You're right. That's right. Yeah. And it is important. And some people, it's like, oh, they're saying the obvious things. Yeah, they might be obvious to you, but they're not so obvious to a lot of people because look at the fucking world we're in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also that's what really pisses me off when I buy a record nowadays and there's no lyric sheet.
Yeah.
And I think, well, then punk rock is just music, and or maybe just like Shock Image. And for me, punk rock always has been about creating a better world, and then you define better world, but creating an alternative, and like the whole DIY thing for me has been very important, and still is actually, and I totally support that, and I'm really opposed to the whole mainstream commercial hardcore thing because I think that has nothing to do with anything that punk stands for. But I also realized that I'm from a different generation. For me, punk rock started in 1977 with like the old punk bands. I did not come from a heavy metal background like I know that a lot of younger people, they get into punk rock because they like loud music, and like I did. But how to say, we sort of went through all these phases of doing things yourself. We squatted places, we did our own magazines, we did our own tape labels, record labels, because we didn't just want to become consumers.
Yeah.
And I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of people into punk rock right nowadays, or into hardcore, it's only about, do I know the best bands? Do I know the hip bands? Do I know the right people? And that kind of stuff. And it's like, and that's, for example, why I still enjoy playing in Spain or the Basque Country or in Poland or in Czech Republic, or you name like all the former Eastern Bloc countries, which are totally different because they have such a different background, and they're more about the purity of punk rock. Every time, and I don't want to generalize about Sweden, but in Sweden, I've witnessed so often it's like people move from one phase to the other. At one point they're emo, and then they become crust punk, and then they are heavy metal, and they all have the right looks. And in Spain, for example, they don't give a shit. They wear their combat boots with striped trousers and a jumper.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you have long hair or a Mohican or whatever.
I've also experienced going down to the continent from here, and it's like the feeling of when you go down to the continent, everyone's still here. That's
Yeah.
the kind of thing, and it's still that mixing point. And whereas it can certainly feel sometimes like, oh, this is the look now. That's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I remember.
And also, I'm fine with that. I don't want to judge people on the way they look. Absolutely. Or whatever.
But just a couple of weeks ago, I was me and Jon were taking the metro home from an alarm practice. And we just done we just recorded the second record now, and we're having a conversation. I kind of just blurted out to him. It's like, I wonder where this band kind of fits in, because Victims is more like a Sheng punk scene, and obviously starting this new thing. It's like, I wonder kind of where we fit in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And everyone said, we're almost 50. Who gives a fuck? It's like,
exactly.
That's so true.
Yeah.
But you know what the funny thing about that is, though, guys, just listening to that, because I was listening to you, Jos, talking about your beginnings, right? And I come from where I come from, just outside of Boston. It's flat. I'm actually from the area they call South Holland. I used to practice in my dad's shed. We were all working class kids. We used to practice also in a cricket changing room, And for me, that's the continuity. I've liked lots of different music, but even from when I was 12, 13, just discovering what I did, the punk and the anger, that has been the continuity throughout. Yeah. And I think even for me, the class politics is always a big thing for me, and being compassionate to other people and stuff like that. So even if my fashion changes, the motivation behind everything has stayed the same, except I'm less of a dick nowadays. I think I'm a bit more reflective and I've grown up a little bit. Do you know what I mean? But that cuts across the sound, for me. Yeah. And I'm sure that's probably the same for you, Jos, right? Pretty much Sue said that. No matter what the transitions of the sounds, whether it's from Lärm, early Seein Red to where we are now, it's still that passion, right? There's still that connective thing.
Yeah, and I think that's well, at least for me, that's my main motivation to keep on going. Because every now and then we sit down and we have a talk like, aren't we too old for this? And Paul turned 65 a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, as long as I still enjoy it and I still feel passionate about the things that we do, I will keep on going on. And of course, I know that age will be a limitation at one point, and we might mellow down. I don't know. I can't foresee the future, but I think at the moment I still feel like there's no reason to quit. That's and like you said, the whole attitude kind of thing. I mentioned DIY a couple of times before, but also like class conscience. Although I think a lot of people would not consider me working class right now, or any longer, because, like, well, my job, I have a well-paid job, which is more than the average salary. But my thoughts or my opinions, they haven't changed. And actually, I think they have become more radical over the past year than they have ever been, maybe, because I see so much shit going on around me, and I have the ability to voice my opinion because I have access to 470 children every day.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think, whenever people would say to me, "Yeah, you're preaching to the converted," I don't think I am.
No.
I might be preaching to the converted at a squat or at a club or at a hardcore gig, but not in my work. And I have this need to do it because I believe that, like, the next generation is something that the world needs. The world needs. We have to try as much as possible to influence them.
Absolutely.
Can I make a slight digression? And that's just really like because you had a little bit of period where you stopped playing, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind saying a little bit about that?
No, of course not. No, it was like we played a gig with Drop Dead in Italy, and of course, like a lot of punks, I lost part of my hearing because we never used protection, and we would also practice very loudly. So we were on the plane back to the Netherlands, and at one point my right ear popped for some reason, and I got into really a lot of pain. So I went to the doctor the day after, and, well, long story short, I had to go to the hospital, and they discovered that I lost like 75% of my hearing in my right ear and like 60 in my left ear. But I also developed polyps. I don't think it's that in my ear, in my inner ear.
Yeah.
And that was like the main issue. Therefore, I had like almost a 24-hour a day, 365 days a year infection in my ear. And the specialist told me, well, you have two options: stop playing live music and stop listening to loud music, or keep on doing that and become deaf within a year. So, well, the choice was not that hard. Although it was a tough choice, but I was like, yeah, shit, I don't want to lose my hearing. So I decided to stop that, and yeah, well, we played our final gig in Amsterdam, and I had a rest for about 3 years, I think. And I had surgery 5 times during those 3 years, and I was still seeing the doctor every 2 months. And at one point, he was doing this hearing test. I was like, oh, I can hear a lot more than I used to. And he said, well, the inside of your ear looks very, very good as well. And so he was like, I don't know how to say that, but I had to come back every now and then. And at one point, I asked him, okay, do you think it's possible for me to start playing live music again? And then he said, well, we can try it out. So he gave me some sort of ointment that I had to put inside my ear, and then had earplugs. And he said, well, see if that works. And I tried it, and I told him, okay, I'm going to have a band practice next weekend. And he said, okay, come by the hospital on Monday so we can check it. And I went to the band practice, went home, and it was okay, like nothing serious in my ears. And on Monday I went to the hospital, and he said, well, surprisingly enough, your ears look as intact as they did before. So, long story short, I was able to start play live again, or to practice at least. So we started rehearsing, and I remember that like the first notes in the practice room was like really emotional for me. Like, shit, this is something that I missed for such a long time, and I can do it again. And I have to admit, for example, those 2 days in Finland. On Sunday, I had a little bit of pain in my ear, and I was like, okay, I have to take it easy. But it was like there was 2 nights of, I think, 6 and 15 bands in one night, so that was like a bit much. So I have to take care of that, and then it's okay. So I'm still seeing a doctor every 3 months, and so far so good.
So you mean the
Amazing.
trip you just did recently, Jos, to Finland?
Sorry?
The trip you just did recently to Finland, you're talking about now with the ears
Yeah,
or
yeah, 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 yeah. The couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
yeah,
And also flying is not the best thing for my ears, of course,
yeah,
because there's a lot of pressure on my eardrums. But yeah, okay,
yeah.
still here.
So,
'Cause that's
so,
what we've been talking about, isn't it, Carl? Like the
sorry?
getting older and staying in the scene, like the different adaptations you
Yeah,
have to make to playing and
yeah.
looking at your body, and obviously it's been enforced on you in a different kind of way, Joss. And
Yeah,
so
It's
that's
funny though. It's funny, like I speak to people. I can't remember who it was at the show on Friday. I can't remember who it was, but I was like, you're you're in your like late 40s and you've only just decided to start wearing earplugs, you know.
mm,
Here I am. I'm like, I've got bad tinnitus. Like, obviously I've
mm,
lost some of my hearing as well. I've always got my earplugs in. I've always got my earplugs in. But
yeah,
blows my mind now when I just see people that,
yeah.
especially
yeah,
older people who don't have earplugs. I just wonder what the state of their ears are like. I just remember to this day, I think I said this to you before, guys. I was at a show at the Grosvenor, and I can't remember who it was, but there was this one frequency, and it nearly made me fall over. And it was from then on, I was like, my tinnitus started to get worse, and it was from then on, I
mhm,
was just like, right, I can't do this anymore. I've got to really, really, really be careful. But up until that point, I was just like, I want to hear everything distorted. I want
yeah,
everything to be loud because if I can't hear it that distorted, I'm not enjoying it, you know?
yeah,
You feel like you
exactly.
have to feel it, and it's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
strange illusion you get trapped in.
I saw My Bloody Valentine without earplugs
Oh,
when they first toured the Netherlands or Europe, and they had like the double PA, and they have this song. I think it's either "Feed Me with Your Kiss" or "You Made Me Realize," one of the two.
yeah.
Yeah.
They have like this break with lots of noise, and that break started, and they would put on the second PA. And I saw them in Amsterdam at the Paradiso Club, and they cleared out the whole place.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I seen Big Black without earplugs, Corrupted twice without earplugs, Neurosis.
Yeah.
You name them. And looking back on it, I was like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? Just like you said, Carl. I want full experience, and it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's,
When
Well,
you're young as I
it's
just
even, it's even difficult
think
for
about
me
it.
now sometimes because when I do the odd gig, I feel like I want to take my earplugs out on the stage, and occasionally I have taken one earplug out because I think,
yeah,
oh, I can feel it better, I can hear it better, and then I've just regretted it,
yeah,
gone home and just like,
yeah,
you
But I
know,
mean, I remember when I was like a kid going to gigs in England and stuff, there was never like earplugs being handed
no,
out at shows. Like
no,
now it's like you go to a big show here and there's people outside selling a lot of
yeah,
the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But I mean, that was never a thing. And I remember like when I was a kid practicing bands, we used to practice in like tiny space in the garage or in a caravan, with huge amps and no earplugs. And then when I started, practicing with victims, like I noticed that the other three guys all had earplugs at practice, and I was like, all right, I guess I should have some as well. That's stupid, you know.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh, you
yeah,
guys have earplugs. I guess do I have to have earplugs? And it was like,
yeah,
and it's like, and then I remember thinking, why I've been practicing for 15 years in our bands without earplugs, and I have a bit of tinnitus, but it's not that bad, I don't think.
no,
But what's catching up with me is my neck, like getting constant trapped nerves in my neck and shoulder from years of being an idiot on stage, and
okay,
thinking you're young and invincible. It
uh
might
huh,
catch up with you, and it does.
yeah.
Yeah, but
um,
yeah. So how is it like feeling? How's it now? Just being like the older gentleman in the scene, and obviously it's a lot of punks. Always been a lot of young people coming into that. And how's it
Yeah.
in at home now? Where like the young crowd come? Do you still feel like accepted in the scene there, or are you wary of being a lot older than?
Uh, at times when people call me sir at a gig, that makes me feel old. But I think because we have been involved for such a long time, I don't know how you call that, but we. Uh, it's yeah, shit. How do I say that in English? If I say it in Dutch, it won't make any sense. But it's like we're grown into the hardcore punk scene so much. Well, into a part of the hardcore punk
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, you're
It's like
really
there's also a
integrated.
part that doesn't know about us. That's like a different crowd. Like you heard about the Revolution Calling Festival in the Netherlands,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah,
and it was last weekend, and it's like
Yeah.
that attracts a completely different crowd. And I know people who go there, but it's like I think maybe 80% of the people who go there, they never heard of our band or our previous bands. Maybe Lärm, but because of the straight edge thing.
Yeah.
Um, but on the other hand, there's like places like Oki. We have this Dutch saying that they say you become part of the furniture.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we became part of the furniture of Oki, and we have
Yeah.
other places in the Netherlands who are the same, like same vibe at different cities, and those people, they know us, and they like we're part of that crowd, even though that the new bands like they're all under 20.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm doing a 7 inch by a band called Inside Job, and they're I think they're all 17,
wow.
18 years old.
Yeah.
And we also just did like last year we did a split 7 inch with a band called No Way, and they're 15 years old.
Oh,
So
amazing.
they are the youngest hardcore band in the Netherlands, and we are the oldest one. So we thought that was like a nice combination.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's of course age matters at some point, but it's not specifically age, but maybe life experience.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I think like the whole being so passionate about music and everything around it, that creates a bond, and then it doesn't really is well, age is not that important. Of course, I can't talk about skipping school and that kind of stuff like they do, but we have still things in common,
Mm.
which is okay.
And I think it's really important because, first of all, you're really challenging kind of ageist ideas about creativity and expression and passion.
Yeah,
I think that is a really big inspiration. And I think we are seeing more and more older people now think, why should I stop expressing
Mm.
yeah,
myself? Why should I stop doing this?
yeah,
Who says I'm too old to do this? And I think
Mm.
like people like yourself, for me at least, it's really inspirational, you know. And it's
Mm.
not just going through the motions, it's still got the passion and the rage. And I think that's really important. We need to be able to expand people's possibilities to live differently, right? And
yeah,
that's a real radical act, you know,
yeah,
because we're all brought up, oh, by this point you should be like this, by this point you should be doing that. According to who?
yeah,
Mm.
It's kind of just being kind of, an ideological thing, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
internalize that, we relate to ourselves and often judge ourselves harshly for getting older. And that's
yeah.
bullshit, you know? And that's why I think it's really, really cool. It shouldn't be like tokenistic. Oh,
No, no,
someone's
no.
older than it. No. And it's great that even this weekend, seeing some of my friends, people who are older than me and but been friends of mine for a long time. And it's just like so great that you
Yeah,
can feel like that and still have that passion and enjoy those times together. So I think
Mm.
it's not a tokenistic thing. It's a real radical act, I think.
yeah, yeah. Also, what's that?
Sorry to waffle on, but I really
Oh,
think
no, that's okay. No, I was also thinking about people that I come across and say, "Yeah, I used to be a punk as well," and I
Mm.
ask them, "And what made you stop? What makes you stop being one?
Yeah.
Where in life did you decide, oh, I'm not a punk anymore?"
Yeah. Like
And they said, "Yeah,
decide.
but you're not a punk either." I said, "Well, it's not about looks, it's about a state of mind,
Yeah.
and that you know." People often say, "Yeah, punk rock changed my life." That's just like a hollow phrase, and I say, "Well, I don't think it is, because I firmly believe that punk rock really changed my life.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't have come across this, I don't know where I would be right now. Yeah, probably in Amersfoort, but or maybe not. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
something I thought about a lot this weekend because we've been talking about this like this weekend. The Total played 40 years since they started in 85. So that really made me realize like how much it has changed my life doing this. Because
yeah,
that weekend we met so many people that we got from people I know I'm friends with from all over the planet who
yeah,
flies in to Sweden to see a band that none of my colleagues at work have any idea about. Like,
yeah,
Total, what? It's like, what do you mean? It's people flying from
yeah,
Canada and Japan, and a lot of these people are my friends that I've made through playing music, and in that way, it completely changed and enriched my life. And like I say,
Yeah.
why would you want to stop doing that? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer. I can't answer that question. I can't really tell you. Well, like I said, I think being passionate about it is probably the reason why I still do it.
Mm.
And it's not about fame or whatever, or being recognized. I don't give a shit about that. And it's, I often think about the phrase that Heresy used as a network of friends.
Yeah.
And I still believe in that. And I still, until today, experience that as well. Well, it can be 5 years since I've last seen somebody.
Mm.
But the moment we meet, it's like, there we are again, as if 5 years didn't count or whatever. So, and I think that's, maybe, well, not maybe, but it's also a big part of why I keep continue doing what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know what you two think about this, but some of the stuff that you internalize through the music and the culture throughout your life, the thing that underpins it, at least for me, is treating people with respect,
Yeah,
compassionately, right? That for me, I think, has grown and grown. You often see they have these like charts that people become more conservative as they get older. I
Mm.
actually,
yeah,
like you said earlier, Josh, I think I'm getting more radical, less conservative.
Mm.
With that, I feel that more and more the friendship and the compassion part of it is the
hmm,
most radical part of it for me.
yeah,
Right. And that is because that goes against so much that we're taught, right? This kind of individualism, go for age age in a particular way, achieve these particular goals, have these kind of status symbols, sell ourselves as products,
yeah,
whether it's like what through whatever, online. And I think that for me, like you're saying, you meet people you haven't seen for years. I think it's that compassion
yeah,
that comes through, I think, and makes you connect. And you go to a show or like, hanging out this weekend. It's just beautiful, you know.
Mm.
yeah,
Without sounding cheesy, it really, really is. It's like,
yeah. It is. Yeah, but that's what I mean. The friendships that you build, they are so strong,
yeah,
because they are, well, based on something else than, yeah, I don't know. They're based on something that's different from other people. I can't. I find it really hard to put it into words, but it's just a feeling that you feel at ease with people
yeah,
as soon as you see them again.
yeah. For me, I think I'd say it's not like a transactional thing, you know. And I do think there's many things that call themselves punk and hardcore, and it is really about ultimately getting attention and what you can get out of it for
Mhm.
yourself, and you're selling yourself, you
Yeah,
know. Uh, But I think we're very fortunate to not be caught up in that so much, because of
Mm.
the scenes and stuff that we've liked, I think, if
yeah,
that makes kind of sense. Um, I guess really, I mean, we've been talking quite a bit. We've covered a lot, really, really important stuff. Um, so I guess first thing, you got any shows coming up, Joss? What are you doing next?
uh, we're playing Berlin, December 20th,
Wow,
Oh,
close to Christmas.
together with Mercer, and then, well, this is this going to be broadcasted live? No,
not live,
No,
no.
no, no.
no, no. We're playing Noise and Noise this next year.
Oh,
Oh,
you are?
Yeah.
Oh,
cool.
So
brilliant.
that's going to be announced. I think I have to send the logo tonight, so that's
Yeah.
going to be announced shortly. What else? We got 2 gigs coming up with Catharsis in the
Yeah.
Netherlands.
Nice.
We're playing with, I can't, I don't know if I pronounce it right, but Oida from
Yeah.
Poland.
Excellent.
Oh, Mike
Yeah,
Spandown.
yeah, in January. Well, we get all these offers to play with Lärm worldwide. It's insane, and I think we turned all of them down. It's like they want to fly us into Brazil for 1 gig,
Oh, wow.
and
Amazing.
I don't think it's a good idea to fly 12 hours across the globe just to play 30 minutes. That's not very
Yeah.
environmental friendly, I think.
Yeah.
And we're also too old to do a full tour. So we
Yeah.
turned down all these offers from the States and you name all the countries. Like Japan has been asking us. Well, not the country, but people in Japan have been asking.
Nice to
Well, not a country yet. Maybe the country will be the next country asking. But, yeah. Besides that, I still run my label, and I have 2 7-inch coming up. One by a band called Inside Job, which is a young band from Haarlem. Which I don't know what they have in the water in that city, but all the bands from there are brilliant. If you ever get a chance to see the band called Traumatizer.
Oh yes, I've listened to them.
Yeah, they're really good. And it's like most of them play in all the other bands as well, except for Inside Job. I'm also doing a split 7-inch by a band called Youth Deprivation. And the other band is called Front Sector. They're from up north in Groningen.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to do the split LP of Seeing Red with Live Abuse, which is recorded. And it's going to be released by Armageddon, and Ronald and myself are going to do the European pressing.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm still thinking about doing a discography of an old band from the Netherlands called Bloedbad, and that stands for Bloodbath. It's like they only release tapes, so I'm thinking about that. But first, I'm going to retire next year. Then
next year,
next year, July is going to be my unofficial last working day, and I'm going to get paid leave until mid-October, and then I'm going to retire officially.
Amazing. Are you going to do another birthday gig next year?
Yeah. So Ronald asked Totalitaire if they wanted to play. I haven't talked to Ronald yet if they agreed or not. So we have if they do that, we'll have them on the Friday and the Saturday at the Oki. Have them play 2 nights in a row. I already asked Sick Urge from Finland.
Yeah.
Because we played their birthday gig. And the offer still stands for Lärm to come over. I've been hearing lots of good stories about Larma. So
yes.
So if we can, the thing is, I'm going to talk to Ronald tonight or tomorrow, and we have to decide what's going to happen, because I think if we want to fly in bands from Copenhagen or from Sweden and Denmark and Finland, we need to book tickets as fast as possible. But they're still cheap. And I think with a lineup like that, we can do two nights. We've been thinking about doing just one night, but all depending on which band can make it or not.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. And the people from E150, they have been trying to bribe me into a retirement fest in Spain. We'll see about that. It's like the future is open for me, and I know that we've been talking about, how long can we go on? Where will we be in 5 years' time? I don't know.
I can't really going to be a very active pensioner, Jos. Makes me very happy to hear.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be a happy pensioner. That's for sure. Gerard and myself, we didn't have any major trip planned, like going to New Zealand or something like that. The only thing that we are planning at the moment is to do a round trip through Germany, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, what's the other country? Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and maybe Norway if we go up north, or otherwise Sweden, Denmark, Germany. And we're going to do that in 2 months' time. I think next year, September, is going to be Spain.
Yeah.
So we're going to drive to visit my brother who lives close to Valencia, and I think we'll be stopping in Sitges for a week or something like that.
Sitges, just down the road from me, Jos.
I know. So,
that's amazing.
Right, so to finish, if you had to pick, 2 old records, 2 old punk records, what would they be?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's hard. Everyone struggles with this, but
I think this is always the toughest question. So if you have to pick 10 records you have to take to a deserted island, which one will it be? Okay, Why by Discharge.
Yeah.
Because for me that was like a game changer.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and the second one. I think at the moment, Machine Gun Etiquette by the Damned.
Oh, nice, nice.
I love how it's at the moment as well, because that's what it is, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's like punk records, of course. But like for me, there's so much more music
Course.
than punk. You know, if you would ask me, what are your favorite records? Or which records do you want to take to a deserted island? Dead Can Dance will be one of them.
Yeah,
mm,
I know. I know.
Uh, I think the Pale Saints will be another one of them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
mm.
shit, maybe even the Victims. Who knows?
Pre-gas.
The victims.
The Australian one.
With the
Even
Carl, I
better.
got that, Carl. Don't worry about it.
And okay,
I've known Joss long enough to know he's taking the piss out of me.
so two new releases or something quite recent. Two new recent records.
It has to be punk rock.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm forcing you into that
Oh
corner.
yeah. Oh, you
I
are.
hope you actually.
You're strict, Carl. You're strict. Yeah.
I think. I'm looking at the records right now. I think the Mecht Mensch reissue. It's not a recent. No, that's not recent. That's like a reissue.
I know. I was thinking word reissue. I think that
No,
counts.
no, no. Yeah, the Traumatizer 7-inch.
Yeah. Okay. Traumatizer.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the Inside Job 7-inch. Like I only have the test pressing right now, but it's
You can go with that.
brilliant.
That's
I
good.
look forward to hearing
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's good.
And I was going to say Homefront, but that's not punk.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know how to describe Homefront. What would you
It's
say?
like I once described their second LP as the Lost Cure album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to place them. I've seen them a few times, but I just don't know where to put them. Like,
Yeah.
they're kind. Yeah, I don't know. They're good though. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not even going to try to describe it.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at categorizing music.
I hadn't heard that band. You say home from?
Homefront.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
You don't know them?
No, not heard about it.
They're huge.
Oh,
They're huge? What do you mean
yeah.
they're huge? Now it's like an old fart. What do you mean they're huge?
Yeah. They played Roadburn not last year, but the year before.
Oh,
And
really?
they played in front of 2,000 people.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I saw them play at the New Cross Inn the first time.
Okay. That's a different story.
Then the second time it was with High Vis at some really big venue in Highbury in Islington. I can't remember what it was, but it was huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gaz, any other questions?
No, I think we're good, mate. I've been talking an hour and 20 now.
Okay, well,
Enjoyed this as much
let's
as I
stop
have.
recording, but I just want to say thank you so much to Jos.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Love you. It was brilliant.
Likewise.
Seeing Red generates a wave of excitement. Don't miss Seeing Red.